Hello, my name is Salathiel Ray, and I will be conducting a scene size up. First thing that's when you come onto a scene, or even before you reach a scene, is identifying safety factors and information about the scene from the dispatch. Dispatch information can indicate what kind of BSI you'll need and what kind of safety measures and other units you'll have to utilize. You can also identify safety factors from the dispatch information, such if it's a car wreck or a hazmat situation, you can know what to expect and know not to go rushing in. Once you get to the scene, you want to observe from a distance, make sure you're not getting into anything dangerous or deadly for yourself. You want to look out for hazards such as biological hazards, chemical hazards, thermal hazards, electrical hazards, and weapons. And you also want to check the environment. You want to make sure there's no hostile crowds, uh, temperature changes. If it's really cold, you can expect ice. If it's really hot, you can hydrate or plan on being out in hotter temperatures. If there's inclement weather, you don't want to be out if there's a tornado. If there's just rain, you can wear a rain jacket. You just want to be aware of all these things when you're approaching the scene. You can observe the scene from a distance with binoculars. I know we carry binoculars on our ambulance and rarely use them, but if there's information from dispatch that indicates a dangerous scene, I'm sure we would bring them out. And if you get in too far and you realize that you've overlooked something or haven't noticed something until you got in close, you want to back out. First thing you want to recognize when you get to the scene is the mechanisms of injury or nature of illness. You want to figure out what causes the trauma or the illness. If somebody's on the ground and has a heroin needle in their arm, then you can kind of guess the nature of illness. If they're in a car wreck, it's a pretty easy mechanism of injury. You also want to be aware of scene factors. If you want to watch out for damage to the automobile, if there's intrusion in the passenger compartment, you can expect some trauma. If there's emesis in a trash can, you can kind of assume that they're suffering from some kind of nausea or abdominal issue. And you always want to overestimate how injured or sick the patient is. You never want to assume that they're all right before you can do your assessment. The next thing you want to know is how many patients there are. If there's a school bus that's in a car crash, you will want to go ahead and get other units en route. And you want to make sure that you have at least as many people as you need. You don't want to have to get other people en route when you get to the scene. Make sure, and then it'll take them another 10 minutes to get there when people are sick and dying. You also want to look out for um, people with gunshot wounds. If it's a mass casualty, you don't want to go rushing in. If you see a lot of people on the ground and there's no obvious indication of what's happening, then you don't want to just run in because it could be deadly for you. You also want to make sure that you know your capabilities. Most ambulances only have room for one critical patient, and you want to be aware of that. If you get there before anything happens, or before you can get other units en route, you want to go ahead and start triaging the situation. You don't want to just treat the most critical patient. You want to go through and use the triage tags and calculate who's going to make it and who might not, and go ahead and set up the scene for when other ambulances arrive. And as stated before, you want to assess the need for additional resources. You always want to assume that if it's a prolonged extrication, you can go ahead and get like air evac en route so they can evacuate the patient to a trauma center quickly. If the person's super heavy, if they're a bariatric patient, then you want to make sure that you have other units. We use engines in the city, but I'm sure other agencies use ambulances and anybody on the scene to help them move the patient. And you always want to overestimate how much help you'll need. If it's a 600-pound patient, you probably want to get more than just 4 people. And the final thing, you want to stabilize the situation. You want to stabilize if the person's a trauma. You want to stabilize the spine. If they had a medical issue and they fell, you want to assume that they could have caused some kind of damage to the spine, and you want to stabilize that just to be sure that you don't mess it up. Thank you for listening.